So, it's been a while. I apologize for that it took this long. We are now at technically episode 70, but I mean, this late in the game, listen, I have some stuff to catch up on, a lot of stuff that I don't remember. Definitely just going to cover the main points, and I'm going to cover the reason why, first of all, this system needs to be revised, and then also why I'm on here today and what inspired it. So, wow. We have a lot of catching up to do. Season 6, episode 2 through 70, take 1. What is good, everybody? My name is Jake, and welcome back to the One Take series, where we get one chance to reflect at this point on basically the whole semester. No second chances, no third chances, one take and one take only. And so, I mean, where do I even start, genuinely? Okay, let's start with talking about the system, okay? Because this is the reason why it failed, okay? Right now, since it is episode 70, how much have we actually accomplished from this list? Well, what I'll say, okay? So the original system, for those who are still around and weren't watching the previous episode, basically what I had in mind was that I would come up with a shot system, right? Which was basically my idea of trying to set deadlines for myself. Where the frick is the marker that I'm looking for? I do not see it anywhere. I don't know how, too. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, and so basically, okay, there it is. I know that was painfully unfunny to watch. I apologize. So basically, the system that I had with the shots was basically setting imaginary deadlines. Right, with the idea of, even though there would be no consequences of me doing it later on, if I set a deadline for myself, then I could get it by that deadline, right? The problem is that when I didn't get it by the deadline, then there was an issue of, okay, well, now there's no real pressure to do it, right? And that's kind of the issue I have, right? There were certain things such as the scholarship or the email or the cover letter, right, where I didn't get it done within the time that I gave myself, and for that reason, I just felt embarrassed to come back to one take, because I basically came up with a process that sounded really good on paper, but as soon as it hit a failure, then I didn't really do much to actually follow through with the process, right? So to follow through with everything that is currently on the shot list, where is it now, right? Well, let's start with the cover letter, right? So the cover letter, I ended up getting it done later on, okay? And so it is important that I have been applying to internships, thankfully. Apply to a good amount. This is actually kind of part of it, so I'll cover it more later on. There is just kind of stuff regarding maybe just like a few things, right? Where I've just learned stuff regarding internships, regarding other people possibly getting internships. It's been just like a whole process, right? And obviously I'm going to try and cover that more later on. But this hat that I've come across, right, this was actually from a career fair. It's called Night Force. I am in no way currently affiliated with Night Force. I really like what they do. For those who don't know what they do, they design guns, right? I've never shot a gun myself. I've never been hunting, but the people there have like military experience and stuff like that. And so it was really cool. Normally this semester I've kind of just been wearing a hat instead of kind of the hairdo and the normal outfit. We'll get to that later on. So right now I'm just kind of wearing a Night Force hat. You know, they're cool. If you're into guns and stuff like that, highly recommend checking them out. Even though I don't really know much about guns. But the thing is that with the cover letter, we didn't get it done within the 4 to 5 day limit, but the key thing is that we ended up getting it done later on, right? So this is why I'm going to make 3 different categories currently for this, right? So the first category is going to be a snipe. Okay, the next category is going to be, well, what should I name it? I guess we'll say buffer. This is all in the works right now. I gotta come up with a new system. That's going to be the main thing later on that I have, right? I'm just doing this to illustrate it. And we'll just put an X for this, right? So pretty much it's exactly as it sounds like. Snipe means I did it on time. Buffer means I did it, but I ended up being late. And then missed means that I didn't do it, right? at all, right? So that's kind of like the current thing, just to illustrate these shots and just to kind of put a bottle on it, kind of put a flag in this system, and then just see how we can incorporate one later on. By the way, excuse my conscience right now. I just want to make sure that we're actually recording because I kind of forgot how the whole process. Okay, yeah, so it looks like we should be recording. I apologize for that. It's mainly just a thing of like, it's been so long, I don't even remember like how to do most of this correctly. So pretty much the cover letter, right, that was a buffer. Okay, so that's one tally for buffer. Okay, the scholarship, didn't get it done on time, however, buffer, right? I don't need to draw arrows for that. I'm just going to do tally marks, okay? Album, no. Didn't get it done by 60 days, and in fact, it is not done. Missed. Email, no, and I never did it. That's another miss. But pressure did get done on time. In fact, pressure actually, fun fact, got done within the first 5 days. Right? I feel like that's an interesting kind of correlation that you can draw there, right? So the current situation that I am in, right, and we're going to go about this, right, is that if you remember from last semester, I had 10 different categories. 10. Let's go ahead and write them down. So first was the Bible, okay? Then, I can't remember the exact order, by the way. Then it was gym, okay? Then it was internship. No, then it was academics. That's what it was, okay? Then I believe it was internships. Then it was research. Work in Big Brother, work group together. Then there was one take. Then there was music. And then there was sleep. Those were the 10 categories, right? In no particular order, okay? There was something really interesting, and I can't remember exactly if I covered it in the first episode, so I apologize if I did. But the thing is that when it came to last semester, right, I did exactly what I didn't want to do. And I know I keep talking about it, but I'm just like trying to reiterate it so that it ties in with the context of this semester, right? I did the one thing I didn't want to do, which is I sacrificed everything for academics. My diehard fan, I have 2 diehard fans. One of them is my best friend, and another one is my mom, right? My mom basically gave the perfect explanation for how season 5 of One Take went down. Was basically me sacrificing every single subject until only academics remained. That was pretty much her definition, right? It was basically the idea of you take away everything. The idea is that I wanted to do all these 10 things, and in order to really be good at one, I had to sacrifice the other 9. Brutal lesson to learn, and I think there is absolutely some truth to it, right? Is that if you go ahead and you put all your eggs in one basket and you truly devote all your time to that one thing, you're going to get very good results, right? But that wasn't exactly the goal of what One Take was, right? It was a thing of like, I would try and balance, not that I necessarily have to do all 10 in a day, however, it would be a thing of if I slowly just kind of went around in all the areas, then I would kind of become a master of all, right? I didn't really want to go all in on one category like I did, even though it worked, right? Because now all it feels like is that I am now burnt out on academics, right? We really like make what this looks like, right? So basically, let's just say I kept sacrificing everything one by one, right? Until only academics remained. What do you think's gonna happen next? Your boy gets burnt out on academics. And as soon as that happens, once you burn out on academics, I really hope I don't regret that. That's gonna like leave some red in the marker. Okay, I think it went away. But the thing is that once you burn out on academics, what do you have left to go to? You have nothing. You have nothing left, right? Because my entire time was devoted to academics, and after burning out on academics, I was stuck in this weird thing of an identity crisis, really. I just didn't really know who I was because I made academics my entire personality semester 5. And it was a really crazy thing to undergo, and just something, absolutely wild. It was just a thing of like, the way I've been describing it to everybody is if I were to put it in Big Brother terms, that pretty much I spent all of semester 5 playing Big Brother, in the Big Brother house, right? And with a mix of other shows like The Apprentice and stuff like that. And then what ended up happening is that 3 weeks later, I was called for All Stars in season 6. Right? And that's something that's kind of tough, because the thing about Big Brother specifically, and the reason why Big Brother works, is because with Big Brother, you are trapped in a house with other people for about 90 days, maybe like 100, maybe 120 in some cases. But then afterwards, you never have to see those people again, right? I was playing Semester 5 like it was Big Brother, but the problem is that in Season 6, you're just having to do the same thing all over again. Which basically meant that if I approached a semester as Big Brother like I did, then that means I'd have to beat Big Brother 3 more times on top of already beating it the first time. Which sounded exhausting. It really did. Very exhausting. And so, I mean, it's a thing of like, I was just lost. I was really lost, and I just didn't have any direction, and I just didn't feel like I was applying myself, which is why I didn't really want to come back to One Take for the longest time, was because I didn't feel like I was making any progress. And also, big thing, massive thing, was that the primary reason, though, that I didn't come back to One Take was the fact that I realized just the mistake that I've been making this entire time, right? And this is going to be the golden piece of advice that I set across all of One Take, right? This is the golden rule. In fact, it's such the golden rule. I didn't think about this ahead of time, but I'm going to name this episode The Golden Rule. Is that no advice matters if you can't take it. That's the theme. And that's the biggest lesson that I could have possibly learned about this entire process. No advice matters if you can't take it yourself. Because for the longest time in One Take, I would always say, what did we learn from today? And I would go down the list. I would list 3 different things that we could improve from the day, or things that were good about the day, and we could translate to the next day or later on in the future. But the problem was that every time I was taking advice from myself, trying to learn advice, trying to reflect, that I wouldn't actually be taking the action of learning from my mistakes and actually taking my advice. And you could argue that I have. I think in some instances I have, but a lot of the advice that I'll give is basically like, oh man, just keep going, right? And then later on in another episode, it's, oh, just keep going. And to the point where I basically just keep becoming a robot, a broken record player, saying the same advice to you over and over again. But the problem is that I feel like there's a lot of advice that I keep taking from myself of like, oh, like set imaginary deadlines, for example. Or like, oh, like there's just other examples. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know there are a couple, right? But the problem is that I didn't take my own advice, and that's why I've been living suboptimally, right? Because I don't take it. So no advice matters if you don't take it, right? You could have somebody who reads books, non-fiction books on how to get their life together all the time, or you can watch a bunch of videos online of, oh, well, here's how to get good at academics, here's how to get good at picking someone up, here's how to get good at basketball, just something as small as that, or even on a larger scale. But the problem is that if you just zone out for the entire video and you don't actually absorb any of the information, then you're not going to walk away with anything. All you did was you wasted time. Right? And that's the thing, is that with One Take, if I wasn't taking my own advice, learning from my own mistakes, then what really was I doing the whole time, right? It's kind of counterproductive. And so it's really, really important for growth. And so basically that's pretty much just something I've been going on for a while. But yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely insane stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much just the state of where I'm at right now, and that's why coming back today, I will bring up the reason that I am back here today. But let's kind of go over some notable events that's been happening. I'm kind of getting hot in this hat, so I'm gonna give it a little break. I might put it on at another point, but yeah. So that's the golden rule. No advice matters if you can't take it. Keep that in mind. We'll also get rid of this. Once again, I'll revise the system and I'll come up with a proper system to actually come up with everything. But what I will say is that in terms of music, which is great, I had one single that dropped on February 11th, another single that dropped, that was Pressure, that dropped on March 5th, and then I have another one dropping in just a few days on March 26th, which ironically I have another midterm for. So basically, yeah, okay, so now it's time to actually recap a lot of the stuff. Okay, so I think it's going to be really impractical at this point if we take it day by day, so I'm just going to talk about mainly a few things that I've been learning, right? But I guess we should actually go down the list, because this is what we usually do, is we go down the list first, and then we kind of talk about what we've been doing in each category, so we'll get on that first, right? I think that's important. Right, so I'll just go ahead and list these out real quick. Research, and then there's work, and there's Big Brother, and then there's intake, music, and let's see. Right. First thing I'm going to say about these categories, okay? Work and Big Brother, I have not been prioritizing too much, okay? So we're still going to do it every so often, right? But the general gist of these two is that we're not as obsessed with these, right? I think work, thankfully we've stored away a good amount of money. So I'm just kind of like taking this time to more focus on other things, such as finding internships, such as music, and such as academics, right? Just kind of things like that, trying to really find myself. That's the goal that I want to do with semester 6. Semester 5, I was running around, and even after semester 5 during break, I was basically running around doing everything for everybody else. Semester 6 is about prioritizing myself. So pretty much regarding these, Big Brother, I kind of watched maybe partway through season 7. I absolutely love season 7, don't get me wrong. It is my favorite season thus far because it is an all-stars season where they've brought back people from season 1 through 6, and it makes it 10 times better, right? And I absolutely love the state of where it's at, but it's really a thing of just I got a little burnt out on Big Brother, right? Well, you know, literally and figuratively. So basically, we're going to return to it at some point. My hope is still to try and finish season 9 by the end of this semester, if we can. If not really, though, it's not really too high on my priority list, to be honest. So mainly just because the episodes are longer and it's kind of hard to watch in little bits and pieces. And so as it stands right now, I mean, like, we'll definitely revisit it at some point, but I find it less important now than I definitely did before, right? So that's where we're at right now. And then, yeah, okay, so now we go down the list normally. Okay, in terms of Christ, we've been doing things, right? We haven't been doing too much of things, but we've been doing things, I would say. That's deserving of a check mark. However, so the current state of where I'm at is that I'm basically going through Hosea with pretty much my best friend, right? And so basically we're going through, I'm trying to think. Man, it's hot in here, bro. Hang on. No, okay, never mind. So basically the thing is that with Hosea, I was trying to finish it, or he wanted me to finish it kind of over break and stuff like that. And I didn't because I was lazy, and I still don't know how to read the Bible consistently. And I know people keep talking to me, okay? There's been a bunch of people, okay? Whether it's my family or whether it's just kind of people, this one guy that I encountered basically on campus, which again I'll talk more about later on with a big storyline this semester, was basically like, what was I gonna say? It had to do with, okay. So pretty much just despite, I know a bunch of people have been telling me of like, oh, well, you have a connection with God and that's really all that matters, right? That still doesn't exclude the fact that I'm not putting enough effort in for Christ and stuff like that, right? That still doesn't exclude the fact that I was supposed to finish Hosea by the end of break that I just got off of maybe 2 weeks ago, actually just a week ago, and it's still not done, right? That I couldn't have read 14 chapters over a break and then over an additional week on top of that, right? So basically, With Hosea, I'm planning to finish it by this Friday. And then, like, once again, we'll revise the shot system later on. But basically, I'll read Hosea by Friday. I'll get that done. I just need to read chapters 3 through 14, and then also the next one. Can't remember the name, but I remember that it was 3 chapters. So it's like you might as well just tack that on there. That's basically 15 chapters in total. Shouldn't be terrible. I'm gonna go get some more water. I'm thirsty already. Smart. I like that. Hope you enjoy that for sure. Sounds good. See you later. Yeah, sounds good. Alright, so we are back. So basically, next thing to cover is the gym, okay? Here's the thing. As of recent, if we were asking about recently, yes, have been getting into the gym, which is good. But if we're talking about the overall scope of this semester, the answer is no. Okay? Not as much as I want to, however, recently I've actually been picking it up, and I plan on hitting legs today. So, that's pretty good, honestly, but I feel like I need to still incorporate more ab exercises into my workout. Right now I still have a push-pull legs thing still going, which is obviously great for arms and legs, but the problem is that with abs, they don't really get factored into there. And so there's obviously a whole thing about how with arms, right, if you can have really strong arms and a really strong upper body with a good chest, good abs and stuff like that, but if your legs look weak, then you just look like you have spaghetti noodles just for legs in comparison, right? And they're just like not good. So basically my plan for that, right, is that for Christmas recently I ended up getting, if I can find it, might not be able to find it on here. I think this is it actually. I asked for one of those things that's like on like the TikTok shop or whatever, but basically it's this push-up board. So I plan on using this at some point. I feel like this would be really cool. The idea is that pretty much to train different parts of your body, you're able to put it here and like here, for example, to train shoulders. So then you do that for shoulders, or if you want, you can go here and here for chest. If I can get it on the blue thing. Sorry. Basically, you know, just kind of things like that. So I'm able to go ahead and do different kind of positions. And I honestly think not only will it train my arms, but it can also kind of train my chest, my back, and hopefully, I believe push-ups train abs, and if they don't, then I'll find a solution to go ahead and train abs at some point during the week. Because, I mean, listen, all of this stuff with arms and legs is super practical, and I definitely can, like, sense a difference. However, Let me see. How do I fix that? I'll figure it out later on. Okay. Basically, the thing is that with, the prettiest muscle in the body, right, is going to be the abs, right? And it's a similar thing with legs, where if you have everything good except for the abs, then, like, it's just, like, kind of It's just kind of You're strong, you're burly, you got good legs, but you don't have good abs. It still makes you look fat and overweight. And no offense, but I don't want to be fat and overweight or look like it. And that's nothing against fat people. It's just a thing of, like, I'm going on a massive side tangent here. But it's basically a thing of, like, I feel like there's a good amount of discipline that you need in order to, like, have abs, maintain abs, and then also just kind of, like, other parts of the body. And so that's really what I want to showcase when I get outside of the gym. Is like, hey, I hit the gym hard, and I train every part of my body, not just my arms and legs. That's what I'm trying to get at, right? So we come up with a solution for that. Okay, we'll tweak it, and we basically just keep going about it, right? Then afterwards, academics. So here's the general scope of what's going on with that, right? Basically, there are 5 different classes, right? So I'm doing it by codes, right? I don't remember if I believe I spoiled some degree of codes later on, right? Earlier on. And if I didn't, then I don't know what I'm talking about. So 33, 34, that's a terrible looking 3, okay? We got, actually there's a 32A, and then we have a 37, and then we have a 38, right? These are the code names that I'm going to be calling my 5 classes, and then I'll talk about it later on, right, of why it's kind of important. So basically, the thing is like, with all of these classes, right, I've been focusing, but the thing is like, this semester, I'm just not as interested in a lot of them, right? The most interesting one to me absolutely has to be, if I can mark it down, is going to be number 37. Number 37 is absolutely number 1 on my list for the best one, and it's not even close. 37 I pull up to, or I do the homework for, and I'm like, I'm gonna have a good time. Or even during the midterm, I'm like, I'm gonna have a good freaking time during this midterm. Like, I'm just enjoying myself in that class. I like it a lot because it's very keen to what I want to do later on going in my career field, and it's very, very applicable, and I love it. I love that class. It is seriously up there with Calc 2. Right now, it's either a 9, a 9.5, or a 10 out of 10. It's one of those, for sure. So, that's good, okay? As for my other classes, now it gets harder because now we just get into the meh. The meh. Everything else, it's like I'm not really just as cared about, Like, I still care about my degree, and I'm still going to find a way to get these done. But at the end of the day, these ones I just have less motivation for, especially in comparison to 37, right? If I were to go ahead and try and rank them, 34 is absolutely number 5. That's my least favorite one. It's top 5 bottom classes. It's nothing against the teacher. The teacher is a great guy, and I believe there is some interesting things, but like the homeworks are a drag to get through, and the midterms are 2 hours long, and they start early, so it's just like, it's a whole thing, and it's just like, I'm not really up for that, So basically, and plus also it's a weird thing where like 50% of the homework, 50% of the grade is homeworks in that class, but I haven't been swinging too well on the homework, so I mean, it is what it is, right? Basically, the rest of them though, 33 is okay. 32, if I had to rank the rest of them, well, if it was at the start of the semester, you were asking me at the start of the semester, 38 would definitely be way at the bottom, for sure. Probably, honestly, debatably number 5. But now that it's honestly later on, now that my lab partner and I are starting to figure things out, and also now we've teamed up with a third guy who was basically riding solo before. Now, honestly, I kind of look a little more forward to lab. However, I still don't like it. So basically, 32 is going to be number 2, okay? And then afterwards, I still think it's going to be 33 and 38, number 4. The main reason is, like I said, okay, 37 I absolutely adore. 32, recently, mainly it's just because of DiffyQ. We've been doing a lot of Laplace transforms, which I absolutely love DiffyQ and everything that came with it. And even if it is Laplace transforms, I'm still really enjoying myself in that class, right? Then it comes to 33, which is just kind of okay. That's a lot of Fourier transforms. But the class is very reasonable. The teacher is very respectable, and honestly, it's just kind of a class that you're just kind of there for, right? Then you start getting into the problem ones, right? 38, I'm not gonna hold you, right? 38 is a lab, in case you weren't able to tell, or in case I didn't already tell you already. 38 is a lab. At the start, it was absolutely terrible. Okay, I didn't like it, especially because the guy who was like giving the lab lectures and stuff like that is always there to waste your freaking time. I don't like that guy, and so I don't attend the lab lectures, and I don't plan on attending pretty much another one ever again if he's the one leading it. No offense. And then we get to 3-4, which 3-4 is, I was gonna come up with some sort of pun that's like no more or something dumb like that, but all you need to know about 3-4 is that I don't like 3-4, and it's one of my least favorite classes that I've taken. And again, it's not because of the teacher itself. This is a rare case, right? I say all the time that a teacher can entirely determine your view on the subject. This is an anomaly. This is an exception of, I really despise 3-4 material. However, the professor himself is actually a really chill guy. So, just take that with a grain of salt. That's pretty much where I'm at with academics, but that's for the current spread of how I've been doing in each of the classes. So right now, I've taken at least a midterm in each, obviously, with the exception of 3-8, which is the lab. And so basically, if we go down the list, okay, 3-2, stay with me now. Stay with me now. I need you to stay with me, okay? Can I confirm that you're staying with me? So basically, here's the thing, okay? We're gonna separate this into 4 columns, okay? There's 1, 2, 3, and then there's the final, okay? Most of these don't have a third midterm, right? It's actually, in fact, everything from here down doesn't have a third midterm, which is really huge. It means I have less midterms, but unfortunately it does mean that the midterms are going to be a little more crowded together. Some are back-to-back days, however, most of them are spread out by weeks, and after getting done with hell and a half week last semester, I'm telling you, like, I am ready for any order of midterms to come around, okay? So pretty much the way that we're going about this, right, is that if I continue the rest of the sheet, okay, 32, stay with me now. Like I said, we started out with the 39, okay? I know that sounds terrible, and it is, right? Because I thought I was going to do a lot better. However, thankfully, the teacher for that class, I remember having her for actually ECE 101 last semester. And what was really cool about that, which by the way, that was Let Me See for the code names, in case you didn't watch the final episode of season 5. But basically, what was really cool about that is that she's very generous. And she allowed for basically test corrections where you can, long story short, make up to 15% of missed points. Basically, you make 30% of missed points, but then only half of them count. So if you do the entire problem correctly, you get points back. I did that. I ended up getting corrected to a 54, which means that we are definitely not down and out for that. Whether we're up in an A, I mean, for an A at this point, I pretty much have to ace all of the homeworks and also the tests. But again, as long as the A is possible, this is the thing. As long as the A is possible, I'm going for an A. That's an important thing that I learned from this semester. You always shoot for the moon, and then you aim for the stars afterwards, because at least then you land on something, right? So I got a 54 in there, okay? 33, okay? Honestly, this is not terrible. This is actually a decent grade in this class. 57.5, okay? The thing about this is that with the average and stuff like that, and just like where the state of the class I'm at right now, how that class works specifically is that 30% is going to be homeworks, right? So here's the 33 breakdown. %30 of it is the homework. 15% is the midterm, the first midterm. 25% is the second midterm. And then you have the remaining 30, which is for the final. So as bad as a 57.5 may look at the current state, it's actually an ideal time to get us 57.5, because now we know what his testing style is going to look like, which by the way, it is completely reasonable, which means that all we got to do for the second and the final is we just study more, and we study the actual test type itself, right? Because if we can do that well on the first midterm, then I don't really think we're going to have an issue on the second one. We're still going to apply ourselves. We're still going to go as hard as we possibly can, because at the end of the day, that's what we do. We just ball, right? But really, I mean, the fact that this is only 15% is absolutely massive, especially when you consider the fact that my current homework grade is 90%, which means that I have 27 points in that, right? So if you were to take this, then that basically means I have maybe around like 8 or so, probably 8 points, okay? And that's 35 divided by 45, which is probably around, I mean, that's 7.9 or 7/9 repeating. And you take that, that's around maybe like 77%. And so here's the thing, is that he said if you currently have a grade in the class that is at the time, right, at the time of the midterm or after the midterm, that if you have something above 80, then it's an A. If you have something below 80, it's a B, which means currently in the class, I have a B, right? So at the end of the day, it's not bad. And then we basically just go ahead, we go with the second midterm, we get our grade up, and that will override that for sure. And then we have an A that we just keep until the final, okay? So that one is figured out. Now, 34 is where we start arising problems, okay? I took the midterm, and personally, I thought it was the worst midterm that I ever have taken. Not the midterm itself, but in terms of my performance, right? I honestly, genuinely expected, and by the way, for context, the worst I've ever done on a test was my Calc 1 final at a 20%, right? So for this, right, and the thing is that he released the test distribution and like how many people got what score, right? There was one person who got between 5 and 10%, or at least 5 to 10 points, and there were 90 points on the exam total, right? I 100% thought that I would be that 5 to 10. That's how bad I thought I did on the exam. Was there was one person who had a minimum of 5 to 10 points on a 90-point exam, and I genuinely thought I absolutely did terribly. Thankfully, in comparison to that, I somehow got a 44. Which again, not great, but in classes like these, when you look at the averages of these tests, a 44 is honestly not that bad in comparison. So I'm pretty proud of that. However, it is absolutely a wake-up call in this class specifically of I gotta really apply myself during the second test and during the final and during these upcoming homeworks, because pretty much, and especially the homeworks, because that's where all the leverage is, right? The ones for this class, the 34 breakdown is going to be 50% for homeworks, and then 12.5 for the first and second midterm, not combined, those are separate. And then you have the final, which is 25%, right? So the thing is like, once again, with the first midterm, right, I didn't do too great. But however, if I lock in for the second midterm and the final, and I go to where the leverage is, and I make sure that I do well on these homeworks, then the 44 in the end shouldn't really matter. The important part is that I really just give every part of the homework my absolute all. As long as I'm able to do that, then we're good. The reason why I've been struggling on the homeworks as of late is because I need to access a program called Code 5. And so basically the issue with that is that specifically with Code 5, there's a deeper issue that's basically I'm not able to basically access it unless I'm on campus, and I'm not on campus most of the time, right? My current schedule allows me to basically take Tuesdays and Thursdays off most of the time, which means that I'm only on campus for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so it's been kind of tough to organize a time to actually be on campus and do it. However, I'm going to find a way to get around it and get it done, because that's where all the leverage is, right? So that's the state of that class. And then we have finally 37, okay? Now 37 is pretty much like one of the only classes. Oh yeah, by the way, while we're kind of here, right? 32A, the distribution on that, if I remember correctly, what was the homework grade? So I'll work my way backwards, okay, right? Because the thing is that if you look at the midterm grades and then also the final, midterm 1, is worth 22%. Midterm 2 is worth 22%. Midterm 3 is worth 22%. And then the final is worth 12. Alright, so if we add that up, that's 66, and then that's 76, which means that 20, is that right? Homework is 24? That's probably right, something like that. It's either that, or what's also a very plausible solution is that it could be 30 for the homeworks, and then 20, and then 20, and this might actually be what it is, but honestly, I'm not really sure. No, because then that would basically, yeah, that would just make it a mess. So, yeah, this is basically the distribution, right? So once again, just gotta focus on the homeworks and make sure that these midterms actually go well. Because a 54 isn't terrible, but it definitely requires a little bit of adjustments, to say the least, right? So now going on to 370, my favorite class, and I meant to say, sorry, I don't know why I said 370, 37, and that's my favorite class, right? Basically, that one, I thought I ended up doing a lot better on, and I'll explain why, but I ended up getting an 86, okay? That's not bad at all, in the slightest. And so, just to finish the thought, yeah, we'll go down the distribution for this, okay? So this is the only normal class in terms of distribution. I don't know why I kept erasing these things, but I guess we learned, right? So, the idea here is that homework was 30, and then both midterms were worth 20 to set you up for a 30% final, which means that if I were to do well in any of these midterms, if you exclude 32A, then really realistically, this class was the best one to get a good grade in. So the reason why I enjoyed this test so much on this style was because it was less of a full response solution where you had to like list every detail and just go about every aspect of the problem, list every step. Is that I'm gonna sit down for a little bit because I think you can still see my face. And basically the thing is that like with 337, the idea was that it was more like a puzzle, right? So instead of actually solving the problem itself, what you would do is they would give you a problem, right? And they were basically saying, if you want to find this part of the problem or this aspect of this component, right? What would be steps that you would take to get there, right? And it wasn't exactly explaining the process, right? Let's say, for example, let's just take a basic example because this is not at all what it's like, but like, let's just say like the Pythagorean theorem, right? Instead of asking you if you know like A and C, then find B, right? Instead of asking that, or instead of asking you to list what the steps are or check boxes, right? What it would do is it would basically list specific steps within the problem that you would get if you were to write it out. And then you would check which ones would actually appear and leave unchecked the ones that do not appear in the problem, right? That's pretty much how you go about it. And honestly, I don't think it was an 86 now that I realize it. I think it was more like an 81. That's why I was a little more upset. It was because it wasn't an 86. It was either an 86 or an 81, something like that. But either way, I was kind of just a little disappointed because I honestly genuinely thought that I aced it. But, you know, I mean, that's what happened with ECE last semester. You know, I thought I aced that exam too, or like, maybe at lowest I got a 25, and then on there, that's I think what happened is that there I ended up getting an 86. So, I mean, yeah, pretty much a similar thing, you know, but it is what it is, and I know that there's a lot of time to correct, and that's what's important, okay? This is definitely not too late. Once the second midterms arrive, and if I do bad on those, like, okay, now we gotta start thinking a little harder. But as of right now, I've come back from many situations, and I know that this is more than comebackable in a lot of cases, okay? It doesn't scare me anymore. Which that's the important thing is like, I can't let academics run my life, and one way to let academics not run my life is just to not let it faze me as much, because it doesn't. So, that's a check mark, okay? Internships, yes, I have been applying to internships, and I am very proud of myself that I've been applying to internships. Granted, am I late? Yes, but the reason why I was late was because of academics, and we've already been through that entire rabbit hole. So, really, the situation that I'm like wondering for like internships right now, is that I'm currently waiting to hear back from a lot of companies, which is unfortunate. Haven't gotten any interviews yet, but the important thing is that I have a backup plan in case things don't go according to plan. Right now, as it stands, I still believe that somebody will pick me up, somebody will see my potential, but as of right now, it's just kind of up in the air, right? So basically the thing is that really with internships, we're waiting for a response back, and if we don't, then the plan is that we start doing more volunteering opportunities. Not only that, but also, so I have a whole thing going, right? The whole pipeline, okay? The main thing is that if we don't get an internship, then we start working on projects. That's where I'm going at, because with the state of research and the way that it's going, research isn't happening, right? And that's a tough decision that I kind of had to make, but realistically, at this point, it's just kind of a thing where if I were to go continue with research at this point and pick it back up, then I'd be essentially starting from square one, which means I wouldn't really be doing a project until my 8th semester. And so really, it's just better to kind of cut everybody's time, not really revisit it, which is kind of unfortunate because, I mean, research was definitely interesting, but it was a thing of like, it would take some time to develop. If there was any time to develop it, it was definitely semester 5, and I kind of just passed it up. So, I mean, we'll see if it could change in the future, but as it stands right now, just kind of leaving it unchecked. So that way I can focus on projects over the summer, right? And that's what I want to get to, is that from my first semester engineering class, I don't know if I can maybe pull it up right here, but what's really cool and that I really like a lot is that we worked in groups, right? For my intro to engineering class, right? And so the thing is that when it came to the actual things, we had to do 2 projects, right? And one of them required an Arduino kit. And so at the end, we basically get to decide who got the Arduino kit in the end, right? What was really cool was that for the second project, I was pretty much the one primarily working on it, since like I had the device that we were trying to build itself, and then also just trying to like actually run the code. Basically, I was doing pretty much the entire project. But what was cool is that I got an Arduino kit out of it, which means that I could theoretically run my own engineering projects using pretty much just the things that I have in this kit, which I find amazing. I mean, there's LEDs, I see operational amplifiers, I see just a bunch of things that I know can absolutely help me in my thing. And it's kind of cool because I didn't realize I'm now looking at like the inside, right? When I first got this and I kind of saw this, I just kind of nodded this off. I was like, okay, yeah, like this is just all like different things. But now that I'm actually looking at it, which is really cool, is that there's a lot of things that I understand now that I didn't understand before, which means that I can run and do any project that I want from home over the summer pretty much for free, and it goes on my resume and portfolio. So that is freaking incredible. And I think I'm going to have a great time with that. I already have the Arduino software installed into my computer. So, yeah, I mean, if I don't get an internship, and even if I get an internship, honestly, I think I'm just going to run up these projects and just learn how to do stuff like that, because it's just interesting, It's really cool. So, that's the status of internships, right? Like I said, research, I decided to sacrifice it just because to make time for other things. Just because I feel like I let it sit for too long, let it marinate for too long, and now it's lost all its flavor, right? Basically, and plus, it was a thing of like, I kind of accidentally ghosted in a way, like I didn't really mean to, and that wasn't the intention, but it was around the time where Helen Halfley came back, and then I forgot to kind of like reinitiate research afterwards, so now it's just like kind of awkward if I come back, sadly, but it is what it is. Maybe I'll find a way to work it back at some point, because it's not a bad boomerang for me to turn around on. If we go about the rest of it, right, like I said, I've mentioned working Big Brother before, and then we have One Take, which, no, obviously I've not, but I have been coming up with more content ideas for shorts, and I know I keep saying it, but, actually, hang on. Okay, One Take itself I'm going to X, however, there's been something cool, and I'm probably going to bring it up more later on. I attended a seminar, you might have heard, you might not have heard, of this one guy named Jun Yu, who is basically this one guy who was actually a biomedical engineering student who became a content creator, and now he runs a business on how to create content. He was running free seminars at one point. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to the 4th seminar. I tried to screen record it. It ended up being like just under like 4 hours long. And so I wasn't able to play back the video, which is really unfortunate. I couldn't attend that one because I was sick. But the first one, I kind of cheated being, okay, man, I'm scatterbrained. Okay, basically the whole thing, the event was 4 different seminars. I attended the first 3, right? The first 3 were attended. The first one I was about to get sick, and I was like, do I lay down or do I go ahead and attend the seminar? But the thing is like with, like that, I decided I was able to cheat getting sick, and I watched the seminar, so that was great. But with the 4th one, my family came in and I was much sicker, so I actually had to lay down and kind of rest and stuff like that. So, I mean, it is what it is. I wish I could attend all 4, but he already gave me a great amount of information that I can actually apply to one taste, which is really cool, and I like that a lot, okay? In terms of music, yes, absolutely music. Music has definitely been a big outlet for me. That's going into the semester, right? Or just kind of like across the semester. I'm really proud of it. Even if I'm not working on the album, what's great is that I'm procrastinating by making other tracks for the future, right? And so, really I'm just trying to set myself up for after the album, which I absolutely plan to release on April. Originally it was going to be April 2nd, because it would have been a whole cool thing, but in the end, I mean, honestly, I just want to make sure I get past midterm season while also working on some elements of the album so that it is ready to go sometime in April. And so that's really where we're at right now. And then sleep, yeah, it's been on and off. That's my answer to that. I'll put it like this, okay? It's like on a sometimes basis, right? Because there will be nights where I get a great amount of sleep, and there have been other nights where I get basically almost no sleep, right? There are a lot of nights where I try to sleep and then I don't end up getting any sleep, even though I lay down and I'm relaxed and my body is just an idiot and doesn't want to go to sleep, okay? I don't know why, like, it's when your body does that thing where it's like screaming at you the whole time of like, go to sleep, you're so tired, go to sleep. And then afterwards you go to sleep and it's like, and then it just fucking stays awake for no reason. It's like, can you stop doing that, please? Like, it's just annoying, right? Like, your body wants you to sleep, and then the second you try to sleep, your body doesn't want you to sleep anymore. It's like, well, then why am I sleeping right now? Or why am I trying to sleep? So that's where we're at right now, okay? Those are the things, and then when I get back from the bathroom, I'm gonna tell y'all about a few, like, major points this semester, right? So I'll be back in a bit. Alright, so we are now back. Time to get into a bunch of lessons that I've learned across the semester. Okay, so the first lesson that I have, right, the first overarching story arc, okay? So this is what I'm going to title it, okay? I'm going to title it Story Arcs. Across the semester, right? So the first one that we're going to go down, right, that I'm going to mention is going to be heroes, villains, and everything in between. Right. The thing about this semester, and the thing about last semester, and honestly every semester before, was I feel like I can either distinguish myself as a hero or a villain, right? Specifically, most of the time, as crazy as it sounds, I kind of envision myself as a villain. Not in like a way that's like, oh, some people around here call me the villain. Like, I'm not really like, I'm not for like that cringe like anime type stuff, but I'm just saying like my definition of each of them has kind of varied throughout really my time at college, right? Because my definition of a hero specifically is someone who goes about life and makes a positive impact on everybody around them, right? Whereas a villain goes around and doesn't compromise for anybody else, right? And they do what's best for them, right? That's my general definition of heroes and villains, right? And so in previous semesters, right, where I was maybe like semester 1, I would say that I wasn't either yet. It was predetermined, okay? Semesters 2 and 3, I was absolutely a hero. That's not even negotiable, right? Semesters 2 and 3, I was a hero. Semester 4, started out as a hero, slowly started becoming a villain until semester 5, all out villain. For sure. So I'm gonna write that down really quick because that's kind of important, right? So basically, if I were to go down the list, semester 1, undecided, where I was kind of just deciding which one to do. Okay. Then 2 and 3, hero. And then we have from hero to villain, and then 5 was the villain. Right, and I'll explain each of these, right? It was because season 1 I didn't really know yet. Season 2 and 3 was pretty much a thing where season 2 I was on the brink of pretty much failing and dropping out of college, and so I had to come back, and so I had to make my own hero story, and I ended up doing exactly that, right? Semester 3 was about getting through a crazy 19 credit schedule, in addition to navigating some relationships, navigating a new club that I got very invested in at the time. And also semester 2, something I forgot to mention was that season 1 and 2 was when I started getting involved with the Christian thing on campus. And season 2, I was especially really invested in that. But the problem with season 2 and that club was just I could have taken it a step further in that. But I was kind of already teetering on the side of like, really, season 2, what it was season 2 was a hero with depression. That's pretty much what it is. And then season 1, I also had depression. And honestly, I still think I basically have undiagnosed depression. I'm not even gonna lie. So pretty much the concept with this, right, is that with season 2, I was in a Christian club, but I just didn't really feel valued enough, right? And so I could have taken this step further. I decided not to. I think that was still one of the best decisions I made. And so then season 3 was really about navigating someone that I really liked and basically couldn't get with, right? Because they had a boyfriend, even though it kind of felt like they were leading me on, and we could have been perfect for each other, but it is what it is, right? So basically, besides that, how to navigate a bunch of school stuff and how to navigate a club that I was really invested in that was related to hip hop. absolutely loved it at the time, but the problem is that with season 4 coming along, is that by the end of it, my perception of it was completely shot, right? There was a situationship that I had in there that absolutely went up in flames, and I just feel like there were the majority of people who were just too fake for me to even comprehend staying in there. People who would hate me for no reason, people who would hate me just because of my skin color. I mean, I don't really blame completely, but like the thing is like, okay, right? Hip hop in general, I don't really need to say this. It's an African American dominated field, right? We don't need to touch up on that. And I don't have a problem like with anything regarding that, right? But it was a bitter image because it was not even really black people who pushed me out of the club, right? I could understand to some degree if it was black people who shifted me out of the club, it'd be like, okay, fine, like that's like more or less your culture, right? Like I understand that. But a lot of the black people were actually chill with me. The people that had a problem with me was actually predominantly white people with maybe a hint of Latina in there, right? So it's like it's a weird thing of like people who weren't even like rooted in the culture were pushing me out of the culture. It's like, what are you doing? Why? Okay, so it was like a whole thing, right? And it just kind of made me mad, right? So that alone is kind of enough to turn me into a villain. But another thing that turned me into, well, those things are primarily what turned me into a villain was because I gave that club my all. And at the end of the day, by a lot of people in there, I didn't feel respected enough, right? There were still a lot of people that I do respect, though, and did respect me, though. And I really do appreciate those people who stuck around with me. And I truly believe that of the people that I still somewhat keep in touch with or still follow on Instagram, not that that's everything, but out of the people that I still am somewhat in touch with, I still really do like those people a lot, right? The other thing was that when I was shifting from hero to villain, right, that situationship absolutely ruined my perception of relationships, which bled into semester 5, right? And that's another thing that I'm going to bring up, right? Was because the thing with semester 3, that already happened with the one girl who was exactly my type, didn't work out. Season 4, there was that one, oh my gosh, it was the actual absolutely terrible one that I brought up in season 5, that whole debacle, right? Until season 5, it led to a 10 out of 10 person that could absolutely be right for me that I had to give up, and I realized I wasn't good enough, and that absolutely ruined my entire perception of relationships, which is exactly why I've just been staying clear of any of that, and it has a big part in this hero versus villain story, if I'm being completely honest, right? But one of the main things that happened, but you might be asking yourself, okay, well, that explains why you may have become like more or less like a villain or transitioned from a hero to villain. But why exactly did you focus on academics, right? Why did you focus on kind of like more school-related stuff or more like career-driven things? And the big reason for that was because 4th semester, I took a class called Basic Circuits, right? 5-credit class. You were in there Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. And there was also a lab component, which basically means that the entire class was around 6, no, not 6, because the actual time that you're supposed to be in class for Tuesday and Thursday is actually more than 50 minutes. It was 50 minutes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 75 minutes Tuesday, Thursday, which means that it's basically the equivalent of a 7-credit class, right? If you can even drive it up there, right? So it's just absolutely insane, right? Put all my effort into there. All of it. Literally went all in to the maximum that I could possibly go. And I ended up getting an 89. 1% short of an A in a 5-credit class. And that was the tipping point. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, where I said, screw everything, and I am going all in on academics. That's the true thing. I don't know if I've brought this part up with the story before. I just kind of reiterate it because it's important to the Jake lore and it's important to this story, right? That was the transition from hero to villain, which means season 5, I wasn't compromising for anybody, right? I wasn't compromising for anybody to advance myself, and that, I believe, is the true definition of a villain. Even if on the outside I'm still nice, and I was still nice, and I still was being genuine to everybody, and I still was putting myself out there. And at the end of the day, it was one of the most productive times in my entire life. But at the end of the day, I was still a villain, right? That's really what it came down to. And especially by the time you get to semester 6, where I had to do it all over again, it's no surprise that I loved and hated some parts about being the villain, right? Because the thing with being the villain is that you get to do a lot of things that you want, right? But when you're the villain, you don't get a lot of the things that you need. And that was something that I really had to learn harshly, right? You were able to get status, you were able to get good info from people, you were able to get a lot of opportunities, you were able to get a lot of things that just gave you more confidence because you were playing that part and because you got a lot of confidence, right? But the thing is like, at the end of the day, I look back on the villain arc and I see just how destructive it was to my overall growth, right? Sacrificing everything for academics, and after burning out, realizing that there was nothing really underneath that, right? Which is kind of unfortunate. And so that's kind of why I transitioned first from a villain to a hero, right? And I'm not going to get into the specifics of this, but then basically God tested me and as a hero and I failed, so I transitioned to an anti-hero, right? And an anti-hero was basically someone who does good things through not as good methods, right? And so basically the importance of the anti-hero role that I was playing for a good portion amount of time in this semester was pretty much that I would still be steering people in the right direction, but even though it didn't look like I was, right? I still looked like a villain on the outside, but inside I was a hero, and inside I still believed that I was getting people on the right path through different methods, whether that's in the gym itself or whether that's for the entirety of maybe like Christ or like academics and stuff, right? By the way, that brought me to the thing I was talking about earlier. There's a guy that I encountered on campus who was basically kind of talking about God. You could tell that he was like more gangster and stuff. He had like maybe like Japanese tattoos and stuff, kind of. But he was African American, right? But we were having a great conversation about God, and it was really inspiring. And so, I mean, it was really cool. That was like on my transition from villain to hero. But later on, with the anti-hero, it was just kind of a thing of like, it was kind of tough, kind of going back into everything just after, it was kind of hard to justify myself as a hero after the damage that I'd kind of done in season 5 and the start of season 6, which means that I pretty much had to do damage control, right? That overall arching concept of like damage control kind of sounded exhausting to me, so I basically ended up kind of transitioning over to an anti-hero. And where I was basically doing what I was saying, right? But then afterwards, I kind of realized that even though it works, and even though I'm kind of still in the anti-hero phase, right now I'm kind of in the middle of transitioning out of that and into the hero, right? So I'm about like right here right now. But I know that I'm going to end semester 6 as a hero again. That's pretty much where I'm at right now. So why do I bring all this up? Well, because there are benefits to being both, and that's what really people don't tell you a lot of the times, that, right? Heroes put everybody else before them, and villains put themselves first. And anti-heroes do something a little bit in between, right? But the thing is that with all of that, right, people will convince you, oh, you want to be the hero in your own story, right? Or you want to be like at least a main character. You want to be a villain, or you want to like take control over life, right? But the thing is that really it's a mix of being both, right? You don't want to be the hero or the villain. You don't want to be the anti-hero. You definitely don't want to be the anti-villain. That's for sure. Don't be an anti-villain in your life, please. But the thing is that when it comes to good and bad, you gotta prioritize others sometimes, and you got to prioritize yourself sometimes, and it really just comes down to maintaining that balance, right? That's really all it's about. And so, I mean, it's absolutely insane, right? Some of the stuff that during the hero phase, I got walked on by other people, and during the villain phase, I was just left extremely empty inside, right? So you find a way to balance the two of those, and that's when you become unstoppable. You don't become a hero or a villain. You don't go by a label. You go by yourself, right? And that's the final version of this hero that I'm really trying to like encompass, right? As someone who has now undergone both sides, arguably a third side, and now is using all of that for good, right? That's pretty much the end. So yeah, it's a crazy thing, and I don't really know how to put it into words. This is pretty much just like all off the dome, like I said, but I mean, it's a lot of stuff for sure. So basically, And that's one element, okay? More to the story, right? Because that's pretty much the heroes and villains and stuff like that. Like what else is there to really encompass? Because that's like the main thing, honestly. That's the main thing that's been going on. Other than that, it's pretty much just like been, it's that's I guess that's pretty much the main thing. I mean, I was gonna like have a bunch of like story arcs and stuff like that, but I think I pretty much encompassed it all. Is that because of this? That's what's been leading me to procrastinate a little bit on music, was because in order to go there, I have to revisit some dark times from like villain times and stuff like that, just back into the story, and it kind of hurts going back. There are also kind of other things where regarding story arcs, right, and just relationships. The reason why I was bringing it up was it just kind of sucked last semester, realizing that there was somebody, and actually like two people, right? Remember how I was saying that everybody comes in twos, right? It just sucked realizing that there were two people that I would consider tens right in front of my eyes, and I realized that I wasn't good enough for either of them, and it was depressing. So right now I'm basically just at a state where I'm trying to work out of this just depressive phase and really try to appreciate the good in life, right? Which is why kind of starting like an exercise where I not only mention 3 things that I am trying to work on during one take, which is what I'll primarily do, but before I go to bed, I'm trying to exercise something where I basically say 3 things that I did a good job on today, and how I played a part in those, right? Just to really like boost the positive morale, I guess. I don't really know how to phrase it, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the main thing that you need to know from here, right? Is that I've pretty much exited Big Brother and really just spend more time for myself, right? Just taking care of myself and for my own care and for my own growth. And that's what I'm trying to focus on this semester. So yeah, personal rant aside, what brings me back to one take specifically? Well, there was this one show that my sister and I were we were talking about, right? That we kind of watched like a while back or whatever, but it was like way back in the day. But we should watch it again. I feel like that would be really cool. But maybe we'll watch it like separate or whatever. I don't really know, because like obviously there's a whole distance thing going on, whatever, right? Basically the thing is that we were talking about The Rookie one time, right? And so the thing is that with The Rookie, I remember like in like one of the first episodes, I can't remember which one it was. Basically, there was one of the cops that was pretty much saying to the other one, it only takes one bad day for somebody to become a criminal. Well, in this case, it only takes one crazy day for someone to reboot one take after being gone for almost 70 days. So what exactly happened that caused me to get to this point? Well, let's go over it, right? There's a short answer to this and there's a long answer to this, right? And throughout this entire day, I've been telling people the short version because I'm trying to get things in as concise as possible. But now what's cool is I actually get the chance to actually talk about it, okay? It is car related, and I would be bringing up businesses. However, I'm not going to mention the explicit names of them, okay? For the safety of me and also for the people who work at these companies and for the people that I mainly talk to throughout the day. I am protecting all of their safety and all of my safety, and we're just going to go about this story and we're going to talk about it, right? So basically the thing is that recently there was a thing with my car, right, where basically there was like kind of like a battery issue or something like that, right, where we didn't necessarily have that replaced, but there was kind of like a whole thing where we would just kind of had to like look out for certain things in the car itself, right? But basically the thing is that I tried to start it up one day and unfortunately it failed, right? This was yesterday, okay? So yesterday it failed, and it was terrible because me and my roommate, we share like a parking spot, right? And the thing is that with the parking spot itself, basically I was taking up the parking spot, which means that my poor roommate, had to go park in other things, right? And so my roommate was based throughout the entire process. They took me pretty much like from like here to our school, thankfully. So I'm like, thank you for doing that, right? And so thankfully yesterday, I mean, it was definitely a problem, but it wasn't crazy much of a problem, right? We were originally, because it was a thing like we had an agreement between us of like, if something happens with the car, we wait until the weekend. However, my parents were nice enough to call me, and then I basically like let them know about the situation, and they were like, all right, like we'll come like get it found out about now, right? So basically, there are a couple characters that we're gonna introduce in this story, okay? There's the only one that I'm allowed to say my name of, okay, which is Jake. Okay, hello, I'm Jake. So there's Jake, and this is a store. What is it? We're gonna call this Cars 4. That's what I'm calling this. What marker should I use? I'll use this one. Cars 4. Okay. Starring Jake. Then the other characters. So I need to think of the characters, right? The Jumpers, right? That's what I'm gonna call them. Okay. We have the Jumpers. Okay. One of them we're gonna call O, and another one we're going to call what was it? What was the other? We're gonna call him D, right? Sorry, that was not the pattern that I was trying to take. I was not trying to make it go OD. I apologize for that. That wasn't my intention. And I bet almost nobody was thinking that until I brought it up too. And then we have the companies, right? Those are the main things, right? And obviously, somewhere in between there was the insurance, right? Okay. It's important to note that the Jumpers are their own company, but I feel like they're more, I realize them more in their people, like respectively, right? So the companies, I can't really list them by letters because then it's going to be a little more obvious. But we'll go I don't want to spoil it though. How do we go this? You know, I'm just gonna take the safest route possible. I'm just gonna call it thing 1, thing 2, and thing 3. That's just that's the order that we'll take. Because if I give too many clues left open, right? Then really what I'll do, you know, well, let's just start with thing 1 right now. What I'm worried about is if I give too many clues, then it gets a little personal, and then people find my information, my address, and creepy stuff like that. It's not gonna happen, but just for safety, right? So let's just start with these, okay? And let's start with thing 1, and I'll introduce the things as we go throughout this process. I need to use the bathroom. Okay, so here we are, and here is the story, right? So basically, I try to start my car, like I said, okay? Try to start up my car yesterday morning, and didn't start, right? So roommate, sorry, I forgot to add this component to the story, all right, was roommate was nice enough to drive me to school and also back, right? So that was solved yesterday. This morning though, my parents wanted to expedite the process and basically say that, hey, like, I know you guys had an agreement to not worry about it until the weekend, but we're just gonna go ahead and do it today, right? And so I'm glad that they did, right? They basically called insurance to come over here and had jumpers come over to my car. The first jumper that came was O, right? O is really cool. I liked O a lot, but the problem was is that when he tried to jump the car, right, there was an inherent issue where the car wasn't working, right? It would do a weird flickering thing when I was trying to like turn it on and stuff like that, and so it didn't really work, right? And so I was kind of worried because I knew that my car had problems with a radiator as of recently, but the issue with that was that realistically, it was just like, I mean, it was problematic because I didn't know if it was a problem with the radiator or if it was a problem with the battery, right? And so basically, thankfully, though, O was basically talking about how he had the same problem with 3 different cars today, right? And so I was like, 3, like that's crazy, right? And so basically, thankfully, it was just an issue with the jumper itself, right? The thing that he was using to actually jump the car, and for me to drive it over to thing 1, right? And so basically, the thing is not the thing. The point is that basically he had to drive off. He was like, sorry about that, but have a good day. I was like, you too, right? And so pretty much then afterwards, I talked to them about it. I'm like, all right, we'll send another driver. Okay, his name is D. We'll send D over there in a little bit, right? So they sent D maybe about like a few minutes later. Well, not a few minutes later. This is exaggerating the story. So in order to actually do it, order was called 45 minutes. Then the guy arrived. The order was called for 45 minutes after it was called, right? And then the guy was delayed, so then it took another 45 minutes, okay? So that's an hour 30. And then after that, it took another like maybe 25 minutes for the other guy to get there, right? Thankfully, after the other guy get there, he literally jumped the car. It worked. I was like, fantastic, all right. And so I knew that in order to fix it, I needed the battery fixed, so I took it over to thing 1. Only to realize that I accidentally pulled into thing 2. So this is the thing, right? This is the thing. So basically, thing 1 and thing 2 were in the same parking lot, and I didn't realize. I was pulling into kind of like a parking spot, and I thought that thing 2 was just kind of like a part of thing 1. I thought thing 2 was just the thing that handles the thing that thing 1 does, right? But the problem is that we had warranty for the battery under thing 1, and I just accidentally pulled into thing 2. So basically, I signed this thing for the guys at thing 2 to go check my car, right? And I basically said like, oh my gosh, I apologize. I meant to actually like do into like I meant to pull into thing 1 basically, right? And so the problem is that as I was saying it, he was basically like saying, he was like kind of signing over for me to go over there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to get scammed, aren't I? Like I'm about to get freaking scammed, bro. And so basically he was talking about, okay, so there's this thing with the battery, right? And so the battery is like, this is what thing 2 was telling me, the guy at thing 2, okay? Thing 2 was basically the guy at thing 2, right? And who should I name these characters? Let me see. You know what's ironic is there's a lot of people in this story whose names actually start with the letter J that I'm actually going to say. So obviously there's me. O, his name actually starts with a J. This guy's name starts with a J, and this guy's name starts with a J. So I can't really use the word J. We'll go with Y. We'll go with Y for thing 2, and then for thing 1, we'll go with U. That's what we'll do. So basically, Y was pulling me aside. He was like, yeah, so your battery is okay, but it's a problem with the alternator, right? The alternator is like really bad, and so we need to go fix the alternator. If you want, I can run up an estimate for you. And I'm like, okay, like, because like this whole thing was like a misunderstanding in the first place, right? And so because my parents had warranty for the battery under thing 1, and so basically it was a thing where I was just kind of concerned, and I was like, ugh. You know, like I didn't really want to get involved with that, so I rung them up. I was like, man, like I accidentally pulled into freaking thing 2, and I thought it was thing 1, but I mean, it was crazy. It was just like a whole thing, right? And so I was really stressing out. Basically, thankfully, I was able to go in, and I was able to tell why that, like, pretty much it was a mistake. And so I kind of reiterated it. And basically he was like, yeah, sounds good. Like, I'll just kind of pull out the car for you. You could tell he was like kind of like a little bit kind of annoyed, maybe like upset about it, which, I mean, rightfully so. I kind of like wasted his time and stuff like that. But basically, we came out of, well, basically he was pulling up the car for me, right, while I was, and so then afterwards he's like, can you like leave me like a good review and stuff like that? I'm like, yeah, sure, like I don't mind, right? And so this is the thing, right? So then afterwards, thankfully, I wasn't able to pay. I didn't have to pay anything, right? I stopped it all before he was gonna give the estimate and before he started working on the car, right? So thankfully, got out of there, pulled into thing one. Okay, and thing one, basically, because I thought that there was another misunderstanding. I thought the battery was recently replaced a few weeks ago. It turns out it was 3 years ago, but we had 3-year warranty on the battery, which means that we were good to go, right? So the guy came in, fixed the battery. I suggested the alternator issue, right? I'm like, do you think it could be a problem with the alternator? He's like, maybe, like possibly. But then he looks at the car and he says, oh yeah, the battery is absolutely the issue, right? And it was really funny. I liked you a lot. He was really cool. But the thing is, yeah, so he came in there, and he fixed it, got it done, and it was a really quick process, or like relatively quick. And so it was completely working. I was like, all right, like we're good to go, right? And so I called my parents about it, right? But they were saying, get a second opinion, right? Get a second opinion, go to thing 3. And have them check the alternator, right? Because the thing is that if you can go here, and I completely agree with this process, right? If you go to thing 3 and they also suggest that there's something wrong with the alternator, then it's actually a good thing, right? And that was my exact thinking. It was like, dude, like if this entire process is happening purely for the sake and purely for the cause that the thing 2 is actually right about the alternator and I needed it fixed, then that's freaking great. That's absolutely fantastic, because now we fix the battery and the alternator, right? And get those done at the same time, which obviously the alternator is the whole thing that's making the battery last a long time, right? So basically, they were like, just to be safe, go over to thing 3 and get it solved, right? And so basically, I went over to thing 3 and I talked to C, right? The environment was great there, right? And so they rung up like a little price for them to like go in and basically check the car and stuff like that. And so pretty much I did exactly that. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, like I'll pay it. And so he pretty much said that the alternator was completely fine, right? The alternator was completely fine. And so they also talked to me about other things that were kind of like things with the car, but they were more minor, right? They didn't need to be fixed in the moment. He was like, do you want me to go ahead and fix those now, or do you want me to ring up like a quote for you? Or like, I'm like I'm pretty, like, we're probably good for now, right? And so basically all I did was I paid for it and I talked to C, and I was like, all right, have a good day. And C was really cool. It was really awesome because after he came out of the car, like after checking the car and stuff like that, he was like, so do you want the good news? And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, oh no, like what is going to happen? He was like, there's no bad news. It's all good to go. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, dude, like you really got me with that. Like, I mean, it was insane. But the thing is, okay, there's a lot of takeaways from this day, and this is exactly why I brought it back to one take, was because the amount of lessons that I learned from this scenario specifically, right? Okay, so I mean, well, first of all, let's just tell what we're going to do for the rest of the day, so that way I can put a lid on this, right? So pretty much the rest of the day, what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be writing a good review for Y, for thing 2, and also for thing 3. I am not going to be writing a good review for thing 1, right? It's important to note, thing 2 didn't ask, or sorry, not thing 2. Sorry. I got it all mixed up. I'm thinking of it in the order that I visited the places. What I meant to say was that I'm giving a good review to thing 1, the place I was supposed to go to, and I'm giving a review for thing 3, the person that checked my alternator. I am not giving a review for thing 2, who told me that the alternator was the problem, right? So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the gym and I'm going to go hit legs, because I said I would do that. Third thing I'm probably going to do, I'm either going to read the Bible or I'm going to get back to studying, because I have a midterm it's no longer on the board, but I have a midterm for 32A coming this Thursday. And so I really got to make sure I'm on my game for that. And then pretty much to end the day, or before I work on academics, maybe I'll spread it out a little bit, is that I'm going to go ahead and read some Hosea, right? So that's the order of things. But what did we learn from today? Lesson number 1, okay? Always get a second opinion. Always get a second opinion. You could spend your whole advice. By the way, this is only applicable when the Bible is not in play, right? When the Bible is in play, you listen to the Bible. That's important, right? That's the footnote of this. But however, right, when you're talking about human level stuff, okay, you go and get a second opinion, because if person 1 and person 2 are saying the same thing, okay, then you have a plausible clause, right? Versus if one person is saying one thing and another person is saying another, and the person from, if C is basically saying is like, I don't know if you're, I keep mixing these two up, but if he was like, I don't know if you go to thing too often, but like they're not really that good. And so I was like, dude, like, thank you, like, I really appreciate it, because I wasn't even trying to go to thing 2 in the first place, but it was just like, I mean, it was a crazy sequence of events, genuinely. And so basically, really, just the entire story really taught me to get a second opinion, because if I didn't get a second opinion, they don't, for reference, I believe that an alternator cost me around like $800 from basically what my parents were basically talking about. And so the idea is that if they were slimy enough to try and scam me for a new alternator, then they're probably slimy enough to run up the price on what it usually is. So you're not paying $800 for it. You're paying at least $1,000, probably honestly $2,000 or something like that, and definitely at least like $1,500. So, I mean, I'm just thankful that I'm like, hey, like, I got a second opinion, and I went to thing 3, and I only had to pay $50 for it instead of like over $1,000, right? So always get a second opinion, especially when it comes to cars. Especially when it comes to cars. Okay. The second thing is that don't put yourself in a position to be scammed, right? Don't do that. Right, this was definitely a day where, as the day progressed, I got more experience on how to handle stuff like this, right? To handle car things, because I am not a car guy at all, right? I don't really know much about cars. I think this day has definitely motivated me to try and get a little more into cars, because honestly, I mean, the way that they work is really cool. It basically is just one big circuit, which is definitely engineering. And you know, it's like, it is really cool stuff. But at the beginning of this day, I didn't know much about cars, and by the end of the day, I was talking like I was fluent in that language, right? When I first visited thing 2, right, one of the things that I opened with was, sorry, I don't know all the fancy car terminology. Oh my gosh, don't say that ever. Don't say that ever when you're going to any of these companies. Never say that, because the first thing that comes into the company's head is that this person looks like a deer in headlights and they are willing to pay anything because they don't know anything about cars. Don't say that. Don't say that at all in the slightest, right? So, like, that's the thing, right? Don't put yourself in a position to be scammed, because I'm telling you right now, if he ran up the estimate and he checked it, thankfully I got out of that company without having to pay a dime. That's the important thing. But if I let him run the estimate, it would have been terrible, and I would have had to pay stuff for stuff that was working perfectly fine. And the original problem, which was the battery, wouldn't have even gotten fixed. So, case in point, don't put yourself in a position to be scammed, right? Lesson number 3 is that some things come with experience. They come with more experience, right? When you go to the first guy or the first thing or the first of these jumpers, you don't really know how to talk to them because it's just a new experience, especially when it's the first time you're doing it, right? But by the second time, you kind of already know by prior experience how things work, right? And so that's really where you got to take knowledge from previous experiences and apply it to where you currently are at, right? And then afterwards, I mean, that's pretty much it for main lessons that I have. A couple things that I also forgot to mention: been getting more into Geometry Dash and also Portal 2, which I'll probably talk more about in a later video, but those have definitely been helping with certain personal things. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all we have. Crazy story to bring me back, but I mean, it is definitely absolutely worthy of reinitiating the One Take series purely for this. So thank you guys so much for watching. Love you guys so much, and I will see you guys again tomorrow. No, not to come back. Nope. Cut.